Hey everyone, welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. I'm Steve, and we do this show every week in order to help promote aquaponic growing and cannabis growing, as well as different things in the cannabis and aquaponic industry. We try to touch on a wide variety of things. This week we have Roger, as always, from I Love Growing Marijuana. Thanks for joining us, Roger.
And welcome. Welcome to all our new guests and our regular panel. Happy Thursday.
We got Marty.
Cheers, everybody.
And we got our guest today, Jeremy.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks.
I have a quick plug here for Ouroboros. If you guys are interested in taking a commercial aquaponics class, his commercial aquaponics class will be the 11th, 12th, and 13th. I will also be teaching part of that class. So if you're interested in learning commercial aquaponics from both me and Ken Armstrong over at Ouroboros in beautiful Half Moon Bay, California, definitely check that out. As well as I'll be teaching the Medicinal Herb class on the 15th and 16th, and the Aquaponic Cannabis class on 19th and 20th, all at Ouroboros Farms. You can get more information at ouroborosfarms.com. Alrighty, this week we have Jeremy from Adler Packaging, all the way over in Maryland. I had a awesome time getting a chance to meet him and hang out with him over at the DGC Cup over in Colorado. We had a good old time. He was showing us all different kinds of different packaging options and all different kinds of different things over there. And he was kind enough to join and explain all the different kinds of cool ways that there are to package your different cannabis products, as well as some of the different regulations you run into when you're working in the cannabis industry and things like that. So thanks for joining us, Jeremy.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, so I work for a packaging distributor, and we're one of the largest mid-Atlantic packaging distributors. So most of what we work in is nutraceuticals and home and health care type of product. So anything that goes inside of something else, we sell you the thing that it goes into. So a lot of my office is dealing with sauces, with hair care products, with beers. We were the bottle supplier for Weyerbacher beer for a while. We deal in a lot of local juices. We do Tezime sauces, if anybody has heard of that, who's in the New England area. So that's really the background of the company. It's an 85-year company, a lot of custom work, a lot of great work that they do. I have, since I've started there, we've started branching out into working a lot more with cannabis companies. As regulation and legalization has been moving forward, especially in the DC area, there's really been this void of a local company to service the cannabis industry and make sure that they're properly taken care of in terms of their packaging, because well, I mean, a lot of the business of what? Steve, what was that? What? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, don't look at Steve or the chat room if you're trying to keep a train of thought. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't learn the rules of being a guest. And to anybody who's out there watching, this is probably going to be an incredibly boring podcast. Steve and I are going to find it really interesting, and because I find this kind of stuff really fascinating. I make no guarantees for anyone else. But what I was saying was a lot of packaging and a lot of the cost in what you do actually really has to do with freight. And so it's really important for the cannabis industry to take that into account, that if you're working with an online company, you're working with, in your plastics, you're working guaranteed with solely Chinese goods. If you're working with your glass, it's solely Chinese goods that have been shipped, and that is a cost. If you're dealing with a local company, we have access to local bottle blowers. Now, they're still no glass is being made in the United States, but we have access to local plastics companies, and we can help people save on their cost, and we can help group people together to save everybody the most money that they possibly can. And that's something that a lot of your online suppliers can't do for you. I don't know if that made any sense.
Awesome. So what are the different kinds of packaging regulations you run into? You know, I know you work with a lot of different states and different things, but you want to explain to people, like, so say someone's got a different, a new edible or some kind of other thing. What are some of the package considerations that people need to do?
Well, you need to take into account your local laws and regulations because everything is different between CRC, opaque. Now I understand that California is going with a clear for edibles. So everything is a mixed bag. And then you have DC, which is really just the Wild West right now. So you know your local laws and know your local restrictions first. I'm fairly familiar with most of them, but I'm by no means, an absolute expert on your local regulations. What I try to take into account in general is that there is universally, there's going to be CRC, there's going to be what we call CRC is a child resistant closure. At some point, there has to be some sort of child resistant. Everyone's focus has been on, must protect the children. Everyone has to think about the kids. Understandable with a lot of the strength of some of these edibles. So, we try to think about what is going to be universal. You're going to need a CRC. You're going to need, at some point, either something clear or something opaque. And it's probably going, you're going to need large blank areas when you're thinking about your art and your artwork, where your graphics are going to go. You need to think about how are we going to put the local restrictions and regulations onto this package for each so that when the regulation inevitably changes, you're not throwing out $10,000 worth of product that you just purchased and you just waited 12 weeks to get from wherever you got it from. And those are the types of things that I try to look at in terms of restrictions and try to help people work through, so that they don't lose $25,000, $40,000 worth of product. Yeah.
Do you do any foil packaging?
What do you mean by foil?
Like reclosable foil packs, like they have now.
That everybody bags. Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. We deal a lot in flexible packaging. We have a lot of both American contacts, and then we have a lot of Chinese contacts as well. Most of your really most of your resins, most of your plastics are really going to be coming out of China right now, especially the Mylar bags in general. The cost differential between American-made plastics and Chinese plastics would blow your mind. And it's an uphill battle for a lot of companies, especially companies that are starting out. So yeah, we try to offer people a lot of different options in that. What in particular would you like to know about Mylar bags?
Well, I was talking, I don't know. I didn't know they were actually Mylar bags, but like I see everything from, I've seen tuna fish packaged in it now.
Right.
I see the nutrients from our company at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com.
Right.
We've got a new flower power fertilizer, and it's a resealable Ziploc foil pack. And I found it to be, I said, wow, this is, and it appears that's where everybody's going.
Yep.
In a way. So I was wondering if it wouldn't be childproof, though, I guess. But.
Oh, no. We are working with a really cool company, American company, that has a childproof, it's a flexible bag, a flexible stand-up pouch is what we call it. I keep calling it Mylar, but it's not necessarily Mylar. What it really is
you stand it up when you open it. It usually folds out in the bottom. It's thinner.
Right.
It's more at the top, and then it widens, and it's got a crease. It's a pleat or whatever.
We call that a gusset. It's a gusseted bag.
Yeah, so that's what I'm interested
in. So what those flexible, we deal a lot in those flexible plastics, and those actually have different layers, and they can be built in different ways for different permeability. So you could have HDPE layers, you could have PET layers, you could have nylon layers built into the bag, because it's essentially layers of plastic built on top of each other with injected resins. And it depends on which process it's going through, whether it's a digital process or is it a silk screening process or it would be a spot treatment process, how those bags get printed. So you can either inject them all with like a solid black layer, or you could put a layer of foil in there, or you could put some sort of craft paper layer on top. The possibilities in building out those bags is really endless. And then you put the zipper on top. But we've got we're working specifically with a really cool company that they have developed a child resistant closure on the front of it, where you have to grab a little front flap and then stick your thumb in the bag and pull them that way in order to open them. So it requires a little bit more force. It requires a little bit more thought.
You know, this episode reminds me of that SNL skit, you know, where they're always like, you can put your weed in. You're that guy, man. Like, that's your new job. Like,
no, that is literally my job.
You're like, you can put your weed in here, man.
You don't understand. That is literally my job right now.
Yeah,
So,
I was just thinking about that. That cracks me up.
Yeah,
like
actually,
this.
on that note, actually, one of the companies I'm working with has a new. I can't talk about it on air, but we have a new proprietary weed product that has a particular kind of consistency to it that makes it pretty interesting to try and figure out what the packaging is. And he came up with a really awesome solution for a delivery method for the particular issue that we were having regarding to trying to figure it out. So
that's cool.
Jeremy, this is one of our packages.
Oh yeah. Yep.
With the Ziploc at the top. This is off the starter pack. And you got it.
And not that I don't, appreciate that cool little bag, but do you have anything a little bigger?
Well, yes, I have some of that somewhere. I got a few of those.
I need more storage room.
Oh, I've got some great big bags. So actually, well, I was saying actually, my first customer is Real Growers, the Recharge. So we're moving them into flexible packaging out of their rigid packaging, because they were having a lot of problems with the tops popping off, which is
transit.
Well, no, it's a combination of factors. It has a lot to do with the atmospheric pressure change from Fort Collins down. It has to do.
I used to have the same problem when we used to do the same containers for iron to use at Aquaponic Source, and we'd have the same problem where when they go to higher or when they go lower in altitude, there was issues with it.
So the other problem with that is actually that pressure-sensitive liner. That pressure-sensitive liner has to be turned to 22 newtons of force, I believe, and you're doing that by hand. It's impossible to do that over and over and over again. It would, first of all, it'd be exhausting on your arm. So that seal is never going to hold ever. And in order for a lot of the powdered nutrients for that seal to hold, you have to get in there with ISO, and you have to really clean the edge of that.
Wow.
Good Lord, this is boring.
No, it's not boring. This is interesting. There's a lot of people that work in the industry and listen to this stuff, and
And we all have projects that we're going to need packaging one day. So you're probably getting picked on some. We're doing some research for all of our own companies right now.
Come talk to me, but
don't tell the viewers. No,
just
kidding.
Well, there's some stuff that we're doing locally that's really, really cool, and I'm getting back to, can you put your weed in there?
Put your weed in there.
So this, and I don't know if your viewers can see this. This is actually spec packaging that I'm doing for a Colorado company. They're working on. They're working on a Cannagar, and
you want to show
really
that up again? I got you the camera locked.
Well, I probably shouldn't show their logo too much, but it's because it for
a Cannagar. Yeah.
It's for a Cannagar. They're a new company that's coming out. This isn't their set artwork. I don't want to, expose. But what this is a PET preform. So it's really kind of cool. What this is a PET water bottle before it's blown out to be a bottle. It's just 54 grams of polyethylene that of resin that they've formed into this shape, and then when they put it into the machine, they'll pick up like 64 or 128 of them, or a massive amount of them, and they heat them up and they blow them into these molds with a lot of hot air, and that becomes your water bottle. This bottle, or this preform is probably for at least a gallon size bottle.
Cool.
But so Steve and I were talking about a little bit before we went on air. This is really sort of the Wild West for packaging, because this is a whole brand new industry, and there's no set rules. There's no generations of looking at bottles and saying that bottle says hot sauce to me, that bottle says liquor to me, that jar says hair care products. We're pulling from absolutely every single industry and creating packaging that for a whole brand new industry. And there are some really cheap options, like using PET preforms. That's everyone's dirty little secret, where they're charging a little bit more for it because nobody knows what they are. But we've got stuff from cosmetics industry. What did I do with that? Like cool little makeup jars. Right. This is for like MAC products. It's an amazing concentrate container. But it's straight walls. So there's not that shoulder underneath there. You can get absolutely everything out of it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful package. And it's something that when you start thinking outside of the box and saying, can I put my weed in there? You come up with you come up with some really creative solutions.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that it's interesting too, because you have a number of different sort of like needs inside of that market. It talked about being its own market, but really you have different concerns for edibles.
Yes.
You do for flour, that you do for concentrates.
Yes.
And even different kinds of concentrates as well. So in different states, like,
yes.
Up until recently, Illinois, you couldn't even be able to see the cannabis that you were buying. You couldn't have a clear container. In other states, you had to have a clear container. So, there's like you were saying, there's a number of different things that determine what you end up having to use, I guess.
Right, and that's why you're seeing a lot of pop tops everywhere, and you're seeing flexible bags and you're seeing pop tops, because it's the most convenient and universally acceptable option. It's polypropylene resin. I think the molds for that thing, they're pumping out 128 of them every time the machine comes down. So they're pumping out thousands of them, tens of thousands of them a day. They can do it in every color. And you can cover all the regulations because it's child resistant. It can be both transparent or it can be opaque. It can be any color you want it to be. It's polypropylene that everyone knows how to use and knows how to decorate. So it can take silk screening. Everybody knows the chemical process for applying labels and for inks that will work on the polypropylene plastic itself. So it's one of those universal products that has just become the accepted norm. The same way that you see shampoo in exactly the same bottle, in exactly the same type of plastic, unless it's in a unique bottle, in which case somebody spent a ton of money to buy a mold to blow something, very specific for themselves.
To make a tool.
Yeah, because tooling is outrageously expensive.
Tool is what it's all about.
Tooling is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so, do you have any do you ever have any customers that are concerned with let's say being less disposable? Like when you're talking about those plastic bags and stuff like that, or even a little bit more durable. Like one of the reasons I like glass is that, like if I, accidentally set on it, I don't smash my entire bag of weed, for instance.
Right.
So there, pros and cons both ways, but you also, I feel like you have a lot of people who are concerned with not having disposable bags and being able to reuse them. So, when I'm done with what's in here, I can, fill it back up again and, be able to reuse it and not contribute to the large amount of plastics we have out there. So do you have options for those people as well?
Well, the market really creates the demand. I mean, it's when we start talking about mass production, you have to. Sorry, let me back up. The short answer is kind of no right now, because there's not enough demand for what we call PCR, which is post-consumer resin. Your plastics that are high in recycled material are not as high of a quality and wouldn't be as not always as acceptable of a quality to the consumer. So when you get really high in your percentages of plastics, your colors never stay the same. Your closures can become brittle. You start having a lot of problems with the quality of the bottle itself. So there's a huge trade-off. But on the other hand, there's also not a large enough demand for using things like the PE, the fully sustainable sugar PE plastics, or the resins that they're experimenting with that are made out of hemp. If the industry were to demand a large enough volume of those plastics, then we could have them. But as it stands right now, no. Because to get a lot of these people to turn on machines, you have to place an order of at least 150,000. That's right. That's what it costs for them to change the machine over to something else. You'll find companies that will do lower minimum orders, but it's few and far between now. Just because of the right. Plastics, universally, your plastics are mostly still local, unless you start talking about acrylics and certain specialty plastics. A lot of your mass-produced high-end cosmetic plastics are coming from South Korea or coming from China, simply because, interestingly enough, the South Korean market has a demand where every company rebrand every single year. So they're always inventing new cool packaging. They're always inventing new cool stuff. And this has been accelerating over the last couple of years. And we're starting to see more of it in the United States because they've spent all this money on the tooling. And so it doesn't cost them that much more for them to just run this packaging again. So we're seeing a lot of that spill over into the United States with lower minimum orders. But for the most part, your HDPE bottles are going to be fairly local. You can almost assure that they're going to be made in the United States. Your PET bottles are mostly going to be local. Your glass is all coming from China, though. I mean, there just are not any glass plants in the United States anymore. And, again, were the industry to demand something like that, someone would probably step up and fill that void. But the demand doesn't have to be high enough.
Which is really how, large orders really dictate the market in that way,
Right.
You really sort of, unless, and again, usually something like, that's going to be, more durable and reusable is going to have a much higher cost. And then people who want to order in quantity, that are going to dictate it are usually going to be concerned with, the cost of doing so. So, I can definitely understand how and why they go the more disposable route, and especially with regulations changing a lot too, because you wouldn't want to spend a whole bunch of money, in this case 4 times as much money or 5 times as much money, just sort of throwing numbers out there, but a lot more money, I would say, significantly more. Like that one bag you showed compared to the cost of this one glass jar is probably pretty significant. I would say at least 5 times as much, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even buying in bulk, when the price goes down, buying bulk on either one of them, it's going to drop and it's still going to be about 5 times as much. So,
Absolutely. And that's
that,
where your local packaging distributor is really fits in for a lot of people, is that people are, especially with our generation, more people are searching out the internet first, and they're moving to the internet to look at a catalog and to order, but they're not hitting on their local packaging distributor who is buying local, who can group people together to get something unique. Say you work with a different local company, maybe they're not producing the exact same product you are, but maybe you hear about a sauce from your local co-packer. Maybe you can combine with them and get a big enough order to get some really special glass. That's where we really fill a need within the community, and that's where I would really encourage most companies really to turn, is find out who your local mom and pop or just local arm of a packaging distributor. Go and work with them, because you'll get better. I mean, I won't say you'll universally get better service, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think you have a lot better chance of getting better service anyway, for sure. Not that you can't get good service from an online place, but I feel like it is more difficult, and the odds are less that you will. And resolving issues is probably like a big part of that. I think that if it's difficult to resolve issues once everybody's gotten through to a certain point and spent money and a bunch of stuff has been shipped, and then you don't find out the mistake happens until a long way down, and then now you got to ship stuff back, and so some of the advantages of working with just another human locally is being able to catch some of that stuff a little bit more early on, or better absorb those costs, because them being more of a hub, maybe they can set that order there and sell it off more over time and be able to better absorb the cost for the customer. And I see that happen a lot with like car parts, like wrecking yards, like for old car parts and stuff. My uncle's always looking for old car parts and Jeep parts and all kinds of stuff, and some of them are really difficult to find. But one of the things that's cool about like auto wreckers is they figured out a long time ago that if they network together, they can all make a little bit of money all the time, instead of hoarding on to stuff and hoping that somebody stumbles upon a rare part that you've just been sitting on for maybe years.
Network sharing parts, right? You're talking about network sharing. Yeah, you go in there to go, we don't have it, but let me look on the computer real quick. Oh yeah, my buddy up in Columbia's got it. Yeah.
Right, and so they can absorb those kind of things too. So if you just recently, I shipped a back seat for a car all the way over here and was going to pick it up for him. And when it came in, he was like, "Oh no, I can't sell you this. This thing is just wrecked. It's disgusting. It's dirty. It's got big tears in the seat. Like, it's not at all what they pictured. So I can't sell it to you. I ordered another one. It's going to be here in a couple of days." And that's the kind of stuff. It didn't cost me anything. He's got to basically eat the cost of shipping that seat. But as a consumer, he can set that there and, maybe try and make use of it or do something different. But that's the kind of stuff I feel like you get with local stuff that you're not going to get with like an Amazon order or something like that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's actually an issue I've been dealing with over the last couple of days, is that I have a customer that needs some emergency packaging, and they're going to be out of their packaging. And because we have a large warehouse, I'm able to walk down to the warehouse. I'm able to grab a couple of cases of lids, and I can get them out of a jam, simply because we deal in that lid all the time. Because pretty much all of your lids are stock sizes anyway, unless it's something. Yeah, I mean, everything is the same. It's really just how you put all of the different Lego pieces together that really makes something really creative and unique. And that's also something where I feel like we're doing really well, because we've partnered with a lot of local decorators. We have a lot of local connections with co-packers. So people are calling us up saying, I need a bottle for an energy drink. And we're able to call to our co-packer and say, do you have time to meet with us and talk to us about, what's the best way to go about filling the bottle, and talk through everything. And we all kind of work together, and we keep making some really cool stuff for people that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it if they were going through a larger company, and the minimum orders would just be way out of reach for a lot of people.
Cool.
Right. when you were talking about the hunt, being able to get them to adapt something, and you were saying it'd take 150,000. I never got to get this out, but isn't that basically a truckload?
Yep, that's correct.
You got to buy a truckload to get anything done.
That's right. Yep. I mean, and it really depends. You know, I mean, a truckload for some things could be a couple million.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a container of all these pop top containers from China, and you're looking at 2-3 million crammed in a 40 foot container.
Yeah, but they're much lower cost per unit. No?
You've got to factor in the freight. So landed cost is a funny beast. When you really start talking about freight, your flexible packaging is really the most the most cost effective thing that you can be working with, because
they hate shipping empty containers full of air.
Right.
Surcharged. No, literally, you will save money by throwing cinder blocks in the bottom of it. I've done it on pallet orders where it made sense for me to buy. It was cheaper for the customer to pay for like 4 or 5 cinder blocks to weigh down their order than it was to not put those cinder blocks in. It was ridiculous.
It is the bane of my existence. It is something I fight with every day.
It's gotten really bad the last few years, because we used to be able to get I'll tell you the biggest thing that kills me. That brings it to the head, and it doesn't matter what product it is, but I've been a few years ago, I decided I had the money. I've been wanting a bunch of nice ebb and flow trays,
mm-hmm.
you know, and I was going to buy the professional trays with the right plastic and all. And the shipping was more than a damn tray.
Yep.
You can't even buy the tray. You got to have a local source to go buy. So you got to get in the car and go buy that tray. The tray might be $65, but to get it shipped, by the time you get it shipped, it's $150. So yeah, shipping has gone ape shit since the gas glut of a few years ago. The funny thing is the cost of shipping didn't come down when the gas came down the last 2 or 3 years. You notice that?
Right.
They didn't, they started really getting bad on shipping, right? About what, 8 years ago? I don't know how long you've been doing this, but what, you're laughing at me.
No, I'm laughing because we veered off into, Noam Chomsky neoliberalism land, and
sorry.
From packaging.
Oh, we get off topic all the time. It's fine.
We're discussing that part of the cost of it is shipping. So really,
no. I'm just laughing because we gripe about. No, you're right. You're absolutely correct. We gripe about that all the time because our fuel costs have continued to go up and go up and go up, and the labor cost goes up and up and up on it. And it depends on shipping lanes, and with the infrastructure crumbling, bridge closures, anything that happens, if it's a heavy rains, your freight cost just keeps going up and up and up. And that's the cost of these goods. It's driving the cost of these goods way, way up when you really get them too far away.
All right. And that, one of the things that we talk about in terms of packaging too, in driving up costs, and I guess ultimately in the end for patients, maybe it's good for somebody in the packaging industry, but when they put the limitations on medicinal edibles specifically, I felt like that was a pretty fucked up thing to do to cancer patients, because if you're only allowed to have 10 milligrams of medicine per package, and now you want to, you need to consume 100 milligrams, you have to buy 10 times as much packaging as you did before, right? I mean, there's no other way around that. Like if I'm coming to you to buy 10 packages and I have to divide them up individually, that's still going to cost me 10 times as much, right? I mean, ultimately, there's really no way around that, right?
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct. And there's it's something that we're really working hard to figure out, because I don't want to be the bad guy that you're coming back to going, I just had to throw out $15,000 worth of stuff that I just bought
Mm-hmm.
You know, what the fuck? You know, I want to work with people. So one of the things that we really are bracing people for is we're going to need to look at multiple layers of packaging. There's going to need to be inner packaging. There's going to need to be outer packaging. We're going to have to determine where's the CRC, where are the regulations, you know, where are the blank panels that it's going to be, you know, is it going to be opaque on the inside? Is it going to
explain what CRC is for people?
Oh, child resistant closure. So, there is actually a governmental regulation on what consists of child resistant closure, and it has to go through a certain amount of testing. I am not as familiar with that at the moment as I should be, but suffice it to say that your push and turn caps, your squeeze pop tops. Some of the coolest package we've been seeing has actually been in cardboard, where they figured out how to fold a box so that you have to push tabs and pull strips that makes the packaging child resistant and senior friendly, because they're making it out of a certain weight of chipboard that doesn't tear as easily. So when you try and pull the packaging apart, it requires much more force than a child should be able to exert to open it. And I don't know what that amount is, but
yeah, you know, I guess I understand that, and people's concern about protecting kids and all of that stuff, like, you know, unless it's like a whiskey bottle or, you know, something like that, right? You know,
right.
Then they don't give a shit. But or a wine, you know. Oh, whoops, I knocked the cork off that mom left open. But anyway,
Back to the political stuff.
you know, I still think that it, you know, probably, and I don't want to like imply that any of those decisions about edibles had anything to do with packaging companies. Like, I'm sure they weren't like leveraging for it. But have you guys or looked into? I'm sure you guys are trying to stay up on regulations all the time. But is there any way that you guys have to provide feedback around like what the results are of some of these decisions that I feel like people make that, you know, may not get feedback from other places? I mean, really, a packaging company is probably the best place that a response like that could come from. Like, hey, this is going to cost people 10 times as much money in packaging materials. You know, that's probably not the best thing to do to a cancer patient. You know, or maybe somebody with arthritis can't open the package because they can't exert the same force that a child can either. Like, you know,
I've never thought about it. That's yeah. I mean, literally, you could be one of the biggest advocates we have for fighting some of these regulations.
I mean, it's weird. It's weird to think about, but I'm just wondering if you right now, if you guys if you just have a way of doing it, not if you are or like anything like that, but just, you know, is there any like mechanic for that, I guess?
We do have contacts in the industry, but it's something we'll have to look into and work towards. I think you're absolutely correct that we could really be an asset to the movement, but at the moment, the industry is so conservative for them to sort of give tacit approval for there to be a marijuana division and for them to openly advertise a marijuana division. It's a big stretch for them right now. That's just the reality of a lot of these industries.
See, you're not saying stigma is holding back the cannabis industry, are you?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Why does it have to have a label at all, though? Why can't it just be another company buying packaging?
Well, because it's a specific industry. Well, I'll let him speak to it. Do you have specific regulations and things you have to cater to?
Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's true. But they do that for the other industries, so it's not. That's still not any different either. It should just be treated as a company needing a package. Whatever the specifications you're willing to do, those specifications. So I understand what you're saying. The corporate isn't ready to get on board with this.
Corporate isn't really ready to throw their weight around in the legislative process on it, I would say. And
that's a good point.
That's the unfortunate aspect of it. They're willing to, I mean, you know, everybody hates to say it, but they're willing to make the money off of the industry, but they're not willing to fight for it to exist. Because
you took the words out of my mouth. They want to make the money, but not fight for it.
I mean, because at the moment, let's face it, the industry, despite how large and how rapidly it's growing, doesn't compete with some of our nutraceutical clients who are ordering truckloads of plastic every month. They're ordering 2 and 3 truckloads.
Right.
It doesn't compete with the beer industry where we're shipping, pallets and pallets of
Yeah.
glass.
And beer doesn't want marijuana legalized, I guarantee you.
Right.
You don't have to comment on that, Jeremy.
And the package, I mean,
Thank you, Jeremy. We don't want you to get fired.
I'm not going to get fired. No.
All right,
But we're just in an unfortunate position where, everybody's just willing to just take the money.
That's right.
That's right.
And not that there's really, obviously you guys have little control over what the legislation is, and if it goes in your favor, then obviously it's great. But I do think, like I was saying, it would be cool if there was just somewhere where you guys could provide some sort of feedback, or somebody responsible for asking, like, hey, what, because it seems like the right person to ask if you're concerned about what kind of cost that's going to, pass on to the end user in this case. Who better to ask than the packaging company? And so it would be a good place to have that. And it's just one of many things that, in the industry that are held back because of stigma or overregulation or improper regulation. It's, add it to the list, right? But
and the other aspect of it is that most of the industry is still a cash industry, and when you're trying to do large plastic orders, or you're trying to do large material orders in any way, we're looking for credit applications. We're placing a $40,000 order or $80,000 order based on blind faith, or you bring in $80,000 in cash to the office. And that's been a big problem as well. That's why, it's again where the local distributor can be very, very helpful, because if we have something locally, if we're stocking something, if we're ordering the pallets of things, we can help you by rolling with the punches as the regulations change. We can help absorb the cost because we're absorbing it across many different companies. And as long as we find something that is universally agreeable, or in ways that we can dress up for each individual company, then we'll be able to really help each other to find better packaging for the business to really succeed.
Not only that, remember that most cannabis industries operate on cash.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Can you walk in?
Sometimes resources are as simple as just like having a safe big enough to put the cash in and have it secure, right?
Right.
There's not a lot of businesses that are equipped to receive $80,000 in cash. That's just the logistics of it. So just having that one resource, can be valuable, because even as somebody who's operated a home business for over a decade, I can tell you if one of my customers wanted to pay me in cash, I would be a little bit concerned about them driving around with $80,000 in cash, and me having $80,000 in cash and having to drive it to the bank afterwards. So, that was just one of those things. It's a resource that somebody local can have in place, ready to go, already paid for. Don't have to reinvent the wheel, and everybody can sort of make use out of it. Is kind of, I think, what you guys are trying to do for the most part, and point out those things. So.
Well, exactly. We're trying to find a way to be a local resource so that you can order in lower volumes because you're ordering with groups. A good example, I have a lot of different juice customers where we order pallets of bottles to get them closer to truckload pricing so that they can come and they can draw off of those pallets, every couple of weeks. We order huge truckloads of glass into for the local iced coffee places, cold brew coffee. We have kombucha customers. We have, like I said, sauces. Hank Sauce is a really big customer. So we're ordering in a lot of different glass to be able to help a lot of different people get a better price on their packaging. They end up saving on freight, and they end up saving on just the manufacturing cost itself by ordering in bulk.
Right.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
Talk about not reinventing the wheel, ordering in bulk and all that.
That's almost like being a co-op. Like that's what it's almost like you're operating almost as a co-op for them because you recognize the local needs, and that is pretty cool as a company. Not many companies do that, order a truckload so that I can, like, if I could get my, I wish I could get my feed and seed guy over here to order me a pallet of things, you know, so I could go and buy a bag every once in a while, but he's not going for it. You know?
Right. I mean, you know, we won't do it for just any customer. You know, we would need enough demand for us to be able to order a whole truckload.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we have to get paid for our effort too. You know, but the trick is that, you know, we're trying to help you out as well, because we feel like, especially in our office, that if your company is growing, we're growing as well. And we want to be in that sweet spot of really helping people as they're coming out of their home office, coming out of their garage with their great products, and moving into more mass production, but not quite mass production, not ready to buy their own equipment.
Used in cold packing and stuff like that.
Well, we have local co-packers that we work with that are really great. A&L Packaging is one of our local co-packers, and they're one of the only local people that'll do aerosols. So we do really cool airless products with them, where there's some really cool engineering technology, excuse me, that's happening in the cosmetic industry with airless products, where the atmosphere that is in the package is that atmosphere forever. That either pulls a vacuum as you remove product, or there's an internal exchange of air to maintain that same atmosphere. So if you have a powdered product and you need it to, say, aerosol in any way, you can, when you package it, you could pump it full of you know, some sort of stabilizing air or whatever, or suck all of the air out, make it a complete vacuum. And then as you pull the trigger, it's picking up it's drawing it up the dipstick and then going through a one-way valve. And this is some really cool mechanical engineering that's happening right now. And it's intended for the cosmetics industry, but it has thousands of different applications across the cannabis field. You know, if you're thinking about your IPM treatment, what if you have a powdered IPM that you need to spray, like diatomaceous earth? If you're trying to apply that onto a topsoil, you could use some sort of a dipstick that wouldn't, your powder wouldn't end up clumping.
Right. That's funny you bring that up. I'm a big proponent of that. Not in aquaponics. I don't think they like it too much, but in soil, in hydroponics, or to get rid of spider mites and stuff, that shit is gold. And you can eat it and get rid of all your parasites too. If you feed it to your pets, it rids your body. I love diatomaceous earth. It's a miracle. It's got every mineral on the planet in it too. But you're right. I love it that you brought that up. I'm sold. I want some. I want to buy some.
Just don't spray it in flour.
Cans with diatomaceous earth. I want to package that. Yes.
Just don't spray it on your flowers, because you don't want to smoke it. That's not.
Right.
It's very bad for your lungs if you smoke it.
Right. You don't want to spray flowers.
But, you know, by working with your local company, I get to see cool stuff like this, because I get everybody's magazine, and I get to see all of the different Korean products, because this is actually a Korean product where they're rebranding every single year. It's a humid climate, and they need to spray a base powder on the face, and they want it to apply cleanly every single time. So the dipstick even twists so it doesn't clump in the bottom. Then they've got other airless packages for lotions, because it's so humid, you end up changing the water content within the lotion itself. So they've developed all of these valved packages that pull vacuum, so you're always pulling the product out of the packaging. Now, with that engineering, and because of the freight coming from Korea, it's really expensive stuff. But
cool.
If you've got a margin for it, like a lot of cannabis products do, you can get some really high-end, really interesting products at fairly low MOQs. But it's great.
Like doing elaborate things for flour, for instance, since it has, you know, a couple of different requirements, you know, depending on what you want to do. A lot of people don't want it, you know, to be exposed to light,
right?
You know, or, you know, it's a little bit similar to cigars, I guess, in a couple of ways, and that you want, sort of a constant humidity if you can. And, so do you have anything like that for flower in particular?
That is really, the sky's the limit with a lot of these options, because what would you like to package it in? A lot of people don't want to package it in plastic. They're not going to want to package it in PET or polypropylene or something like that. Some people are looking for glass. You can take, just a regular jar and stick a CRC cap on it. And this is just like a spice jar. It could be really anything with it. I always like to ask people, what do you imagine that you'd like your flower to look like? How do you want it to be presented to the customer? What do you imagine that it's going to look the best to them? Because it's wide open. The world is wide open to your creativity. You could go into flexible packaging if you're trying to save money. And there's a whole world of options with custom printing options and hot stamping, foils, layers, windows cut into them, opaque patterns.
Easier to ship.
Yeah, easier to ship.
You can ship. That's the thing, I think. The biggest thing is flat.
Yeah. And not only that, but if you're comparing it to a rigid container, you can even spend a little bit more and buy an American product, American flexible packaging, save on your freight, buy it in the United States. You'll save on your landed cost in the end, but you won't save as much money as if you buy from China. I will say that. Like, they're producing flexible at such a tremendous rate in such tremendous volumes, there's no way that American companies can compete. If I call up a flexible manufacturer and I tell them that I got a quote from a Chinese company, they hang up on me. They just won't talk to me anymore, because they're getting beat up left and right. So really, to get back to that,
sort of like LED, and electronics, a lot of that stuff, even a lot of the companies that we've had on that are based in the United States, in terms of where their companies are, they're still not a lot of the parts are still made over there just because they can produce them so much cheaper.
Well, what I would really love to see is I would love to see the growers community really band together and try to pressure their Congress critters into drafting legislation that emphasizes purchasing American-made goods for their packaging, because it's possible. And if we do enough of it and we really band together, we can get that manufacturing cost low enough to compete with importing Chinese goods. So, to really come back to a lot of what you were saying about, it's the same with PCR and with recycled plastics. We could really demand that within our local laws and our local legislation. You could connect with your local packaging distributor and tell them, hey, we need American-made pop tops. We want American-made flexible. We want it to contain this much recycled plastic. Do not ask for recycled glass. There is no way to guarantee that what was originally in the glass was non-toxic. So when they go through the recycling the recycle process for recycling glass, no. You don't want to put anything that you're going to put in your body into recycled glass, unless you do the recycling yourself. So,
plus, glass is pretty cheap and easy to make, and there's plenty of sand in the world, so.
Yeah. So yay! Oh.
So what are some of the more funkier packaging? You showed me some funky syringes and some of these other cool, like you got any other you want to talk about or show any of the other funkier? You got some cool stuff.
All of my cool stuff is at the office. So yeah, like I was saying, we've really been hitting on lately. It's funny how the packaging world works. It's such a small world. Like, my boss is third generation packaging. The company, and my boss will tell you, his grandfather got into packaging, selling glass bottles to moonshiners. So The company itself has been in business for 85 years, and we've been working with all of the same salesmen, all the same vendors, all the same other distributors, all the same competitors. So when we see marijuanapackaging.com, when we see Kush bottles, when we see Canaline, when we see e-bottles, we know all these guys. So as the whole industry sort of moves, one of the salesmen recently shifted to a company, and he's been working for several different South Korean firms, and we've been getting all of this really cool South Korean packaging magazines, and it's neat stuff. It's, like I said, it's fairly expensive. It's highly cosmetic. A lot of it has to do with airless, different types of auto-loading droppers, possibilities for patients, especially with child-resistant tinctures, or when you're dealing with tincture products and you need a child-resistant package, there are auto-loading droppers now where you screw the dropper into the top of the bottle. It draws up a certain measured amount of product into the dropper. You unscrew the top. There's a valve closure on the top of it, so you can turn it over and nothing will pour out. And you have a loaded dropper where you just plunge it and you have a measured dose of something.
That's cool.
Huge applications within the cannabis industry. So yeah, I mean, there's some really cool atomizers that are on the market where we can fit little trigger sprayers or little pump sprayers onto some really neat bottles, either glass, maybe PET. I don't know. It really depends on what your product base is. And the type of oil as to what type of plastic we recommend. So,
cool.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Yeah, you don't think so. You talk about it all the time, but you know.
No, I love it. No. I tell everybody I love my job. We come into work and we talk about packaging. And especially because this is a new division for the company, we're all really excited about it and really excited about the customers that we're working with, especially Scotty at Real Growers. We're super excited about the work that we've been doing with him. We love his product. In fact, I got samples brought into the office, and my boss was screaming about his hibiscus, showed me pictures. He had never seen his hibiscus grow this way. So he's on board with Recharge. It's fun. Love my job and love coming to talk about packaging. So yeah.
Yep, he's been on the show 3 or 4 times. We often recommend Recharge for people.
Yeah.
It's good shit.
Well, it's actually, I mean, that's actually how I found Scotty when I got into the packaging industry. I've been following the Growing with Fishes podcast for a little over a year and learned about Recharge through you. And as soon as I got in the industry, I approached Scotty and said, can I help save you some money on your packaging? And he said, yes. And we've been working at it ever since. And we're doing some really cool things for him.
That's
awesome.
Right. We bring people together. That's what we do here.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so funny because they inspired us to do the show, and then we ended up kicking back his packaging guy.
You know what? We're all working together. Like I said, work with your local packaging distributor, or maybe you're not your local packaging distributor, but we'll figure it out.
Well, the other funny thing is I work with some of the guys that do the bookings for some of their guests, the guys that help out. So shout out to Malik Spider. Hell yeah. Thanks a lot for helping us out. I still got to finish updating some of the stuff there, but yeah, he helps out with both shows, and he also helps out, I think, a little bit with the GrowTube show. So shout out to him for continued support for the whole community, especially the podcast and live stream community is huge and helping us out for making sure we can get cool guests on the show.
Awesome.
It's so weird having the GrowTube on break. I know everybody freaked out, thought it was a prank. Did you see that?
Yeah, well, no, hey, like we've had a couple of times when we took off. There was a time we took off 2 or 3 weeks from you and I were both just had a lot going on. It just happens sometimes, you know.
Yeah, no, well, they did better than we did. They planned it and announced it and everything, and then they did their last show before the break, and apparently a bunch of people didn't believe it and thought it was a prank, and that they were not really taking a break. It was all just a big joke, and he had to release the video no, really, we're not doing he kept getting all these messages like, "You guys are doing a show tonight, right?" Like, the 6 o'clock or whatever it was they started at came rolling around, and he had to put up a video on his YouTube like, "No, seriously, it's not a joke. We're not going to be on for like 3 weeks. You guys need to find something else to do." So that was pretty funny, but I love the grow tube, and it is a little weird not having them on, but it's I totally understand them wanting to take a break. I just thought it was funny that he had to put up a video for that.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can get one or two of those guys over on our show while they're taking a break. I've been emailing a few of them.
Yeah, I emailed Crazy Diego, and somebody else asked, posted on the thing. Actually, I think it was Malik, it might have been, that posted on my channel and said to email him. So I messaged him a couple of times. I talked to him on chat, and they're always like, "Oh yeah, let's do it." But the chat goes so fast. I think, they don't pay attention half the time, other than just like, general back and forth stuff. So I haven't heard anything.
We'll get him on.
But it would be cool to get on there for sure.
Oh.
Very good.
So yeah, so what other? So I was pretty surprised. You so you guys also offer some like curing solutions and curing containers. I was kind of surprised to find that out. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, really most people are curing glass from what from what I understand from sort of the consensus. And we can get access to some really big, like gallon, 2-gallon, sometimes as much as 5-gallon glass for a lot of customers. So if you need something with a really good seal on it, again, talk to your local packaging distributor, because again, this is a giant glass container. You want it to come from as close to your location as you possibly can to get the best price on it, because your freight is gonna suck on that thing. But yeah, we can get some really cool, really big glass. All of it is really coming out of China. There's some neat stuff coming out of Shenzhen right now. I actually have an uncle that what he does is he translates for Chinese businesses and for Taiwanese businesses when they're dealing with American companies, that he helps facilitates business transactions. So we're starting to work with more glass manufacturers in China and seeing some neat stuff. We should be getting some really cool vape cartridges in. I should be getting some really interesting display glass that I'm going to show you, Steve. And we're gonna see some really neat stuff. So it's kind of fun.
I would imagine there's some cool stuff you could play with. Like I mentioned, we talked about the humidity stuff, and then also like UV protection, for instance. A lot of people want to have to not have the quality degrade over time and exposure to light, but still be able to see through it, for instance, is one of the things that I hear a lot of people. They go into dispensaries, and I've seen a couple of them, like on the higher, the top shelf stuff. When I don't go into dispensaries very much, but when I do go in there, usually they have the top shelf stuff has fancy packaging of some sort. I've seen everything from the small recyclable, almost cardboard-like containers where the top pulls off, like twists off, and you can put your weed in there. And, so, and then obviously various glass containers as well that come in there too. But it's always interesting to see, or what different stuff that people can do. I think cannagars are interesting as well.
Right.
They're so similar to an actual cigar, and there's already a whole industry around shipping fancy cigars around. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're working with a Cannagar company, and I found a glass manufacturer actually in New Jersey that makes scientific glass, and they make actually cigar glass tubes. And there's so many different options, like from the PET preforms to perhaps even different types of beverage glass, or what you would think of as spice glass. Like you look at this and you think immediately spices, but it could be something that you could package your product in. The market is really wide open to your creativity, as long as you're willing to decide where you're going to have CRC, Where are you going to have you leave space for your regulations to change? And, you know, how can you make it as universal as possible so it can either be opaque or it can be clear? You know, so if you're taking, like for instance, if you're taking this PET preform, well, since this is a standard closure on top of here, it's a standard size neck. I can get a child-resistant cap that's a push and turn that will fit onto here exactly. I can get a liner put in here that'll put that pressure-sensitive liner, so we could do sealed furrow protection across the top of it, and it'll be an ugly plastic, standard child-resistant closure, but it will fulfill your regulations. And then we could take that and then we can dip it in wax, or we can do all sorts of things. We could do a shrink band. We can, like I've done here, where we've done worked with a local decorator, and we've done a really cool digital transfer that we're working with really low minimums, and we're really excited about.
That's cool.
Make a small plug for our customer, but we're doing some really cool stuff. It's to be able to, but specifically to be able to help this industry, since everybody has to order in 1-2 cases. You know, you're not rolling into your local packaging distributor and dropping $4 or $5 grand on your packaging. If you're ordering online using your own credit card, you're not ordering, you know, 10, 15 grand unless you are a fully invested, packing, or, you know, a producer with deep pockets, with a, you know, large capital. Most of those guys are coming in and they're looking for 1-2 cases. They're trying to buy, you know, 4 or 5 things. So we're trying to find creative ways that we can get their package to stand out from everybody else's, be unique, but in quantities you can afford, instead of 25,000, 50,000.
Right.
Am I boring the shit out of everybody yet?
No,
this
no,
is
That's
everything-
distracted by chat. Chicken holes give me a hard time.
Oh, there's
I'm
our
not over
buddy.
in chat.
Does anybody have any questions in chat for
Yeah.
the packaging expert? Do you guys have any? You guys have any other stuff you offer? Maybe like large containers, or people, you know, that are maybe storing cured bud, or in, you know, in large batches, or some other stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. There's like I said, the world is really your oyster right now, because we're really inventing the packaging world, and we can find a lot of creative options between, you know, 5-gallon buckets that we can get made locally, or, you know, large glass options. There are large maybe PET options, or flexible bag options that we can come up with for people. And again, because we know all of these plastics manufacturers and we know them locally, we can find ways to get them as near to you and as cheaply as we possibly can. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So
Pretty much in chat yet.
yeah, does anybody else
Yeah.
in chat have any questions? We got 13 people in chat, actually.
Oh, really? I didn't
Yeah, we have
know.
13 people listening to how interesting. 14 people now listening to how interesting your packaging is.
Now he's
So,
nervous. Look out.
yeah, now he's turning red.
Most of them are just trying to peer pressure me into taking big hits, though. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it. Peer pressure.
All right.
What have you been up to, Steve? What's going on with you?
Well, actually, before we do that, why don't you tell people how to find you there, Jeremy?
Oh, yeah. If anybody wants to give me a call at the office, my phone number at the office is 410-242-8888. Or you can send me an email at j.milner, that's MILNER, at adlerpackaging.com, ANDLER packaging.com.
Yep, and I put that in the description, so if anyone needs that and wants to just copy and paste it and be lazy, you can do that as well.
But yeah, please give me a call if you have any questions, or if we really try to pride ourselves on being really honest with our customers about what we can and can't do for them. I'm often turning people away and saying, listen, you're not ordering a large enough volume. Here's your best option right now. Here's how many you can order through me. come talk to us in a couple of months. Let me help you save money and let me help you grow to the level where I can help you. Or can I, get you caps, or can I, get you help you with your labels or something else. So there's a lot of options that we try to be really honest about where your dollars are being spent, what are you're being charged on freight, and why. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'll tell you what, I'll probably be calling you about a couple ideas I've had just to see where I would stand and what I'd have to achieve to be able to get a good price break. So
I deal in a lot of stuff in North Carolina.
Oh, I had one last
we're
question.
pretty close. We're pretty close. Yeah, we're not that far.
I have one last question that I had. What do you guys have for seed packaging? We have a lot of seed growers and guys that do different genetics and stuff. What kind of packaging do you have available for seed distributors?
We've been getting some really cool small flip top or just hinge top little packages that are similar to the standard little conical shape flip top, but they're more cylindrical. They're more like the like your standard J tube pop top. We've got those. We also have the little glass vials and like the 1 dram. Most people would look at them and think they're Coke vials, but we've got things like that. We have, Boston rounds. Really, the world is your oyster when it comes to that. We could do, even very small, flexible bags.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I was just, I know we have a lot of different seed companies that listen, and I thought I'd, it's one of the things that I definitely would be considering.
Yeah,
seed companies are always looking for a new stealth way to ship.
Yeah, we talked about the different, the different ones for consumption. When we talk about seeds or clones, either clone shipping is another big thing that's come up.
Yep.
Actually, I get asked to ship clones all the time from random people that I don't know. It's fairly awkward.
Yeah.
But,
I get at least a seed request a week.
But I do get a lot of people that are, that do legitimately want to do that, even, like interstate transfers and stuff like that, where it's, like recreational grows that want to exchange specific cuts to do grows, like experiments, side-by-sides, different growers growing the same cut.
Right.
It happens with breeders a lot. So clone shipping is another one. So, all that is, just different fingers of that industry that you could explore. And, like you said, how many do you want to ship at a time? Do you want a tray? Do you want, like all of those things end up coming up, each their own little rabbit holes.
Well, I'm also a 3D designer and 3D modeler for our office too. So I do help people with tooling and doing custom tooling. I've done a couple of custom bottle projects around the office, and then do some interesting projects for myself. So that's another thing that we can really help people with as they are trying to find something new and interesting, and we're developing new aspects like, how would you like to ship a clone? What are your requirements? It'd have to be crush proof. It would have to be, it'd have to be leak proof, right? It would have to be watertight.
Preferably, yeah.
Would you have 1 or 2 chambers? What materials do you want it to not be made out of? You wouldn't want it to be made out of glass necessarily. Do you want it to be made out of acrylic? That acrylic is probably going to come from China, so you're going to need to get a bill of materials for it. Like it's the things start getting really complex when we talk about it, but it's really fun. It's really but while we can explore that industry and we can talk about that, that's something that's really going to be more moving forward as legalization moves forward across the country. Because right now, if you were to dump a bunch of money into developing a product to ship clones across state lines, I can guarantee you'd have that plastic product seized coming into the United States.
Right, and I think that, again, with more stigma and regulation and all of the stuff that holds back the cannabis industry, you might not see a lot of this stuff for a number of years.
Yeah,
it is interesting, I think, to think about different stuff, and I think, even shipping mass amounts. So you talked about, 5 gallons of glass. A glass container that holds 5 gallons is a very large glass container. But in a lot of cases, if you're going to eventually, like, let's say I'm a producer in Oregon and I want to sell my excess cannabis to somebody in, say, Las Vegas, who has, maybe not the ability to meet the demand that they'll get because of their tourism and the fact that we live in a desert, and the definition of a desert is nothing grows there. So if I want to ship hundreds of pounds down there, that's going to, bring up a whole nother set of logistical challenges in shipping. People have been fighting that battle for a long time.
Right.
So to do that on a commercial level, I think will be interesting to see how that plays out once state lines do open up, or even international lines do open up, sometime in the far future, probably.
Right.
But it will be interesting to watch for sure.
Well, and that's one of the things where, I can be sort of the sweet spot, or I can point you in the right direction, because I feel like for companies that are looking to create dispensaries and they're looking for display glass, and even in some cases curing glass, I'm sorry, Steve, I'm going to cut myself out of some business here, but I think that it's more in your best interest to look at your local glass blowers, at your local, for like Scotty, for like, say, Mountainside Glass or somebody of that nature. If you could find a local producer of beautiful decorative glass, you're going to spend more money, but you might end up spending less than getting a really big jar from China, unless you're buying a lot of them. If you're buying 5 or 6 for your dispensary, Harbor Freight, maybe your store.
So just give people an idea. What size jar is this glass here? Do you know how many gallons this is? Is this a half gallon?
I think that looks like a 64 ounce. So it looks like half gallon.
Yeah, pretty sure. So it's 10 times bigger than this then, basically, right? That
right.
5-gallon glass container we're talking about.
Yeah.
So just to give people a size reference.
And then when we ship it, and that size glass container, my cost might be somewhere in the area from $3 to $4 for that container before landed cost, before we have it shipped in. And then when you ship in a pallet of them, a pallet might only be 50 of them. So it costs, $400 for that one pallet divided by 50 little glass containers. That $3 container just jumped up to, 10?
Right.
You might be better off going to Harbor Freight. You might be better going off the Pier 1. I make sure that your glass is, of course, food safe. But if you're looking for big display glass, something that's more decorative rather than what you're using for your product, that might be a better fit.
For sure.
Any questions at all, or did everybody fall asleep?
No, Steve's typing away. I can see him. He's talking to somebody. You muted, Steve?
Just working chat, that's all.
Oh.
Saying hi to people in chat. ECSD says hi.
What have you been up to, Roger?
Oh, what am I up to? I've been trying to keep up lately. I had some, some network failures a month ago, and I'm still catching up from that. But forum's running pretty good. The blog's running great. We got a ton of people using those flower-powered fertilizer. It's just crazy. I'm really surprised how our membership of just everything we show them, they just jump on it, and they're all having good success, and people are very happy for them. That's about all I'm doing. That and taking care of my dogs. My estranged wife is on the road as usual, so I'm here alone with the animals. So I'm here babysitting and sleeping with the dogs.
All right.
Nothing big.
Roger and his bitches.
My clones are rooted. My Blue Dream, my Blueberry, my Strawberry Kush, my Pineapple Haze. The roots poked out the bottom of the rockwool yesterday.
Nice.
I was referring to your dogs.
Yeah, you said what about my dogs now?
No, I said Roger and his bitches, referring to your dogs.
I actually have two bitches and one male, one big giant hound dog.
I know. I remember you saying you had a couple girl dogs.
Yeah, well, yeah, I got two, almost 5, and then ancient female golden retriever. hound dog and a 2-year-old female pit bull. That's crazy. Red nose.
Hopefully BrayneGro comes back. We haven't seen him in a little bit.
Yeah, I'll check and I'll look at the forum because I can. The thing about it is, him being a member of the forum and helping out, I could private message him at the forum.
Well, I haven't seen him on Facebook. Well, I have a couple other means of talking to him, and I haven't seen him around. He's just been busy, I guess.
Yeah.
What's new with you, Marty?
Let's see. I'm about 99% sure my side-by-side that was supposed to be 2 of the same cut is not 2 of the same cut. So somebody got high. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but the guy that I got that whole batch from that I had grown up and then previously, taken cuts of those. So who had them originally and flowered them before, he should be able to give me an idea of which one it is. But it should be some, either way, it's all, good stuff. It's either like Starfighter, OG, or Grogu #4, or Jaeger, or there's no really bad options, except for the only real issue is that it's supposed to be for a side-by-side grow. And, to test, they're supposed to be the same cut of the same strain in order for that to really, matter, I guess. So, and it's all growing up into the net and everything. So I probably have to just about cut it out at this point in order to really do anything about it. And I wasn't really paying attention. I was away from the podcast for a few weeks when my daughter was born, and wasn't really doing much in the garden or really doing anything else besides that. And so I finally got out, started making some videos, and was training it to the net. And I started looking at them, and I was like, oh shit, this is not the same at all. And so I'll have to decide what I want to do about that, if I want to just sort of restart and re-veg again, or if I'm just going to flower them out. So that's been fun, but really just sort of, I guess, kind of rebooting the garden now that the kid's getting a little bit older and sleeping through the night, and a little bit less to do around the house. So we got the house cleaned up and listed, it's for sale. So that'll hopefully go through pretty soon, and we can move on to this other property we've been looking at, and I can actually start growing more than 10 plants again.
Good for you.
So, we've had a couple people come look at it already. The neighbor's house sold in 3 days, so we're hoping it won't take forever. I don't expect it to be 3 days. Well, it's already been 3 days, so that didn't happen, but I wasn't expecting that anyway. But we are hoping that they'll be able to sell, and we can sort of get all that stuff done. So other than that, just kind of rebooting the grow in the garage and trying to figure out what I want to do with that. Making some ferments. It's a good time of year to ferment stuff. So, I talked about the plum tree out front. So, it's fairly good size. So every time the kids get too rowdy indoors, I tell them to go outside and pick plums, and we make another ferment. So it's always a good way to take advantage of child labor. And everything's growing great with that. We made ferments and added it. Today, my son just went out, and he loves to plant seeds. So our big project today, when he got rowdy, was we cracked open a big watermelon we bought from the farmer's market, and he pulled out all the seeds and set them aside, and then we went out and planted them out back. And so I have this, the raised beds that I used to grow medicine in, now I just grow food in, which is, of course, perfectly fine with the county. I can grow as much as I want of corn. I want to grow one of those rotting flowers, just so that it smells ridiculously bad, and it blows right towards my asshole neighbor. But
I know where you can get one.
Huh?
There's a company called Top Tropicals. You can order them. They have a bunch of them right now in. I thought about ordering one. What are they? The corpse flowers.
Yeah, the only problem is they take forever to flower, so it really would be sort of he'd probably be dead by the time it actually happens. So
They take 10 years. They take 10 years to bloom, and you gotta keep them in a tropical environment. And they're like a huge bulb.
Yeah, if I could guarantee that it would happen this season, I would plant an entire row of them along his fence. That's, yeah.
That might hurt the sale of your house, though.
I'll cut them down, compost them. It'll be fine. worth it. It's worth it. No, so anyway, I have the bed set up out back, and I have drip lines set up to where I can just it just waters every day. And so when we plant seeds back there, what we figured out we can do is I just go through and take the rake and sort of make a little trough underneath the drip line, and he goes in and my son throws his watermelon seeds underneath there. And so we have like rows and rows of cantaloupe, and like they're just like growing over the top of themselves at this point, just because it's like one of his favorite things to do is harvest his own seeds and and plant them, which he insists is just like Minecraft. And I keep telling him, no, Minecraft is just like the real world. But to a kid, it doesn't really make sense that way. It's the other way around. It's real life Minecraft. And I'm like, no, that's not it. It's the other way around.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun, and it's great. It's a great way for him to sort of get outside and have some fun. And he has some watermelons growing in the aquaponic system. He planted those, and he's got like 3 or 4 watermelons on the vine now, so he's pretty excited to watch them grow. So it's fun to for them to get kind of that full picture of how all that stuff works. And he's only 7, so obviously just turned 7, so it's cool for him to sort of have that full experience and have that exposure to just those sort of basic skills. And it's funny how he relates them to Minecraft, but really, as long as he knows how to do it, who cares, right?
Right.
Yeah, but the fact he'll know how to grow food the rest of his life, that's for sure.
Yeah, or where it comes from. Like, have you ever seen I can't remember that guy's name that did this special where he went around to different schools and talked about their food programs and stuff, and he was like asking kids where stuff comes from, and like nobody knew, like they thought milk came from plants or something like that. All kinds of a bunch of kids had no idea like where food actually came from, like what was grown versus what was from animals or different stuff like that. And it was shocking, honestly. Oh, Jamie Oliver, I think that was his name.
Oh yeah. He hated him at most of the schools too, because it made them all look so bad for what they were feeding the kids. Most of the school districts.
Yeah, they kicked him out of a couple of them. This was a few years ago. I think it's called Food Revolution or something like that. Anyway, you guys can look it up if you want to, but it was pretty eye-opening for me, just in terms of like you were saying, he made him look so bad, they basically kicked him out. They're like, no, we're done. Like, we can't have you come back in here anymore. And I was like, wow, that's really sad.
Yep.
They can't handle the truth.
All right. I can't talk about what I've been up to yet. I think another week or two, and I'll finally be allowed to, hopefully. But a big project. It's not little.
Laying around your hotel room. That's
Yep.
not much to talk about, Steve. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep. Can't you see the huge aquaponic grow behind me? No, I'm just kidding.
I was talking about that with one of my friends the other day, though. Like not having plants outside is like really getting on my nerves. Like, I've had them outside, every year for so long that like it just feels so fucking weird. It like seems like, especially when you go out. I'm a member of so many groups now that everybody has their pictures of all their plants outside, and it's like you're sitting outside while everybody else is having fun. Like, you're the sick kid inside looking out the window, everybody else playing. You're like, oh, it sucks.
Me, I can't grow my plants.
Yeah, fuck the county.
Me.
I'm gonna take my medicine and go home.
Oh man,
It sucks. And Marty's gone on and on about the People's Republic of Oregon.
yeah.
I call them the Jackson County Mafia. So
The law's the law until they change the law back and forth and back.
I'm sure as soon as they see this, I'll get pulled over.
So
Yeah, I
funny
call them the
story.
Jackson County Mafia.
Funny story, actually. Shout out to, there's a guy that happens to work at the hotel where I'm at, and he was walking. Well, I was walking by the other day, and he goes, "Oh shit, I'm listening to your podcast right now." And he showed me, and he was listening to our podcast, and he goes, "I stopped smoking, but I got some shit I'll give you." And he came back, and the next day gave me a gas mask, like old school gas mask. It's fucking awesome. And he gave me a cool little pipe. I just want to say shout out. That was fucking dope as fuck. Oh, he says he's here. He's in chat. Yeah, there. He's in chat. So I thought that was dope. Shout out to TMA. I won't say the rest because I don't want to get him in trouble because I don't know if he's off air. I don't know if he's working or not. But I wanted to say shout out to him and thank you.
Yeah, I see Old Fire Grows in chat too.
Yeah, Old Fart Grows. Hell yeah, I'm gonna be
What's up,
spending
man?
some time with him. Him and I are gonna be doing well, yeah, him and I are gonna at least do some an eclipse video together. We're gonna drive up and see the eclipse, I think, so that'll be pretty dope. Maybe even do one with Marty. So we got some stuff in the works.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. See if we can line it up. If not, we'll get you on the way back.
All right, I may be in the middle of the woods, just so you know.
Oh, okay. Anyways,
That's that weekend you're talking about going is the opening weekend of archery season, and I'm a big archery hunter, so I will likely be somewhere in the middle of the woods at an undisclosed location. But I will relay such location to you if you need to know. No, seriously though, I probably will not be around that weekend, but I may be up towards Central Oregon, so we could probably rendezvous, especially if you want to watch the eclipse. There's a lot of good places where you can. Apparently, there's going to be a lot of meteor showers as well, so
yep.
you can always enjoy those. So we might be able to hook up. I don't know where I'll be. We'll find out.
Yeah, that'll be dope. But yeah, shout out to Old Fart Grows. We'll have him on the show again soon. He is the Jedi Master of the extraction arts.
Nice.
Yeah, people love those kind of shows.
Yeah, we're gonna get him on again. He's gonna do a little like home small batch, like making medicine for your mom and dad, or sick family member for yourself kind of thing. I was talking to him, so it's
That'd be cool if you could do something like we did with Mountainside Glass. That was such an elaborate.
Yeah.
Like I can believe like how in depth that guy was willing to go. It was really cool of him to take that kind of time and show us around and move around the shop. And
well, we'll have to do a video with Jeremy when he's actually in the warehouse, so you can show us all the different crazy fucking things.
yeah,
I actually have on that note, I have a really cool guest. I think it's next Sunday. I won't say who it is yet, and I can't remember if it's this Sunday or next Sunday. I'm pretty sure it's next Sunday. We have a really cool guest that is really, really cool. And if you've ever read the book Tie Stick, you'll like this guest. So check it out. We got a really, really awesome guest lined up, but we might do a random unannounced Sunday edition because of when we're able to do an interview with this guy. But it'll be worth it. Trust me, you will not regret it. So working on a pretty cool guest coming up.
This is something that you've been working on like a few weeks. We've talked about.
I've been working on this for a couple of months. I got 2 or 3 really dope guests that I've been working on. We're just a matter of timing and me getting them the technology they need to make the interview happen.
And they don't live in the U.S. That's why we're doing something. Okay, well, maybe they do.
I don't know where they live.
Here we go.
So.
Okay. So let's quit talking down.
No. It'll be really cool, and I'm trying to get on some cooler OGs, some people that have grown cannabis for a long time, put up with some of the crazier bullshit from back in the day, way before it became legal and allowed us to sit here and have a show and talk about it openly without worrying about having someone kicking our door in, or at least not so much. Maybe worry a little less about having someone come kick your door in. So.
Yeah, or be able to consume on air.
Yeah.
Legally.
So without them, we wouldn't be able to do any of that. So I'm trying to get a couple of these guys on to do some interviews, and do some talks on that. And on that note, you guys can take a couple guesses on who we might be coming on the show. But I got a couple of the cool people lined up. So, and what else? Is there anything I can talk about?
Did you want to talk about those busts in Yuba County?
Oh yeah, you go. You want to maybe introduce it?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Maybe I know more about it than you do.
About it. I mean, I read much as I could read about it earlier. There's a lot of different threads and stuff to read through, but there are basically there have been at least a few different busts in Yuba County, some large ones. There was a weird shooting that happened at this the Rastafarian Church of Cannabis, which is Eddie Lepp, and I forget his wife's name now, but he just got out of prison after serving, I think, 7.5 years of a 10-year sentence for a nonviolent growing charge. So there's this whole conspiracy theory style video that's posted of people that work down there and of what happened, are alleging that that he got out early because he turned over a bunch of these grows that he had talked with about maybe joining the church. And there's this whole you can go watch the video, it's up, it's fairly long and elaborate, and they have a bunch of post-it notes on the wall. Looks like some weird CSI set. And of what I've read so far, I wouldn't say there's anything that would be considered evidence, but there's definitely seems like a pretty good divide of people that are yeah, this guy is a total scam artist, con artist, and people that are no way, he'd never do that. So it's pretty polarizing still. I mean, it just happened recently, but a number of quote unquote illegal grows, so they're wouldn't be considered medical grows or anything else. I mean, one of them I think was 17,000 plants,
right.
And hundreds and hundreds of pounds. The incident at the farm I think is kind of weird. The guy shows up at the Rastafarian place, at the Eddie Lepp place, and they had to call the police. He was tearing plants out of the ground, I guess.
And they told the police he was armed. They straight up were yo, this guy's got a gun, make sure you come armed, or make sure you have your vests. And the cops didn't take it seriously. And what happened? Both cops got shot.
Yeah, and they said that and there's a video that they posted about that incident, which was separate as well.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of people that think all of that stuff is connected, and basically that if I understand, again, it's a fairly long video, and it's not overly clear, but it seems like what they're alleging.
One side of it, of course.
Yeah, he's working with, the DEA or whoever. That's how he got out of prison early. Even though he served 7.5 years of a 10-year sentence. So, you adjust for good behavior, and the fact that, he's this kind of old hippie dude, I can't imagine he got into much trouble. That seems fairly realistic. So I kind of see both sides of it. I can understand why people are on edge or nervous or develop theories around how different things can happen, but I haven't seen anything evidence-wise where I'm oh, wow, this is totally a scam. But you definitely have people that seem to believe that, and I'm not going to discredit anybody, but I do believe in innocent until proven guilty. So at this point, I haven't seen anything that was damning evidence. But I do think that a lot of people are going to look more into it either way. So he'll be on the hot seat no matter what.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, because it happened and they hadn't announced it yet by the time we went live last week, they passed the, I think it was Friday last week, they passed the legal protections for medical growers on the federal level. It is still and will be for another 2 years illegal for the federal government to spend a single dime to go after legal medical cannabis growers. So.
Yeah, that's cool. We talked about that a little bit last week because it had just happened. And
oh yeah, maybe we did.
And which is, I think the most interesting part is that was a Republican majority panel. It was like, 16 out of 24 people on the panel were Republican, and they still voted to protect medical growers, which I think was pretty awesome.
And 2 senators from New Jersey also introduced a bill yesterday to have cannabis removed from the Class A narcotics.
Yeah, Cory Booker. Yep.
Mm-hmm. A number of stuff. We should do that's a pretty elaborate program, actually. Well, Jeremy, I understand you're getting ready to take off. We want to appreciate you.
Yeah. I actually have.
I don't want you to fall asleep on air. That'd be embarrassing.
Yeah, he's one of them East Coasters.
Yeah.
Hey, East Coast.
That's where I grew up. It's fine.
I know. That's right. You're just as far as East.
I used the same area code as I did growing up, which was crazy.
Yeah. Love Philadelphia. Spent 9 years there. Wish I was still living there. So
good ass. Some of the best food.
Oh my God. Oh. There's no. I think it's one of the best cities to eat in the United States. Just great. All right.
Well, thanks for all the great information, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm turning into a pumpkin, but
it's that pumpkin time for all of us, I think.
I think so.
All right, Jeremy, have a good one. Thanks for all the info. Have a good night.
So I thought it'd be cool to cover some of the questions I got in my comments. I don't know if Marty, if you have any good ones right off the bat for you.
What was that?
I got some questions from our comment section on our YouTubes.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So do you use any extra nutrients in the water, or is it just fish waste? And that's from Umbra Gricola. So we do actually add some nutrients. It just depends on what the plant needs and what form in the life stage. But we do use different mineral salts or nutrient ferments or compost teas.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what your original water source is. Like obviously, if you're starting with RO water, for instance, you're going to have to add a lot more. Or if you have city water, for instance, you're going to have to add a lot more than say well water. So it kind of depends on where you start off, but eventually, no matter what, you're going to have to supplement certain things that just don't come in fish food. You're pretty much, I would say, primarily nitrogen producing, with a little bit of phosphorus. So for the most part, everything else, you'll have to supplement at least a little bit. For cannabis, obviously, potassium would be, I would say, like the main ones, and you'll need more phosphorus. And you'll need more magnesium, and you'll need more calcium. So you will need to supplement just because it's such a heavy feeder. It'd be
I was going to say
cucumbers, or you're growing tomatoes, or you're growing anything. If you're, in order to produce the fruit itself, it needs to take up more nutrients than what aquaponics will provide. If you just want to grow lettuce forever, then you can have a perpetual system like that.
So another question is, in aquaponic systems is it okay to add additional nutrients? Like some of the people have great success with hydroponics, or does that negatively affect the fish? So that's the reason why we use the dual root zone methods, which we described really well in the first episode. And then I also have a separate breakdown video of it on my YouTube channel, and I think Marty might as well.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely check that out. Also notice you're using light tubing. Have you thought about high efficiency LEDs? Would it hurt the fish? I prefer using LEDs. We had Spectrum King on last week, and that works really well. They're honestly my favorite lights at the moment in terms of how well they work. So.
Yeah, and I think they have a wide variety of, if you need a small light, that covers a small footprint because you're only doing a closet size grow. I think or if you're doing a large scale and you want to cover, an entire room, you can get, larger footprint lights, and they cover the spectrum really well, pun intended, Spectrum King. So I think there's that. And then there's a lot, we have a lot of other LED information in general in our previous episodes. If anybody wants to check those out, we talk about LEDs come up a lot. It's one of those questions that comes up over and over again. So, and as far as the hydro nutrients go, I would say to a certain extent, a lot of the hydro newts out there are going to be salt based, and I wouldn't even personally put them in my dual root zone. In terms of, you're just talking about hydroponic stuff, like anything from like General Hydro, or anything that's going to be a salt based nutrient that's readily available to your plant. While you can put it in, I still wouldn't recommend it. Would prefer something like a dry amendment that you can water into your dual root zone, so you're not getting that salt buildup, especially in a dual root zone, because a lot of my root zones are relatively small, so it's not going to take a lot of salt buildup to start affecting the microbial life that we want to establish in there. So that's my only caveat on, even when you have a dual root zone, still be aware of what you're putting into your plants. If you are going to do something, like we talked about recharge earlier, that's a great option to be able to add in. So while it gives you the ability to, I would still say, anytime somebody says something like hydro nutrients, I get a little bit jumpy, because usually, 9 times out of 10, if you walk into a grow shop and pull a bottle off the shelf and go buy it, that's going to be a salt-based nutrient that I feel like in the long run, for what we're trying to do, doesn't work. If you're trying to just grow a plant, just cannabis itself in a, like cocoa, some inert media, then, that you're going to throw out as soon as you're done with that particular run, then I could see maybe it would have a purpose. But it's my anti-salt speech for dual root zone.
Yeah, you'd basically want to go with, if you did use a commercial store-bought nutrient, you'd want to use some products, not all are good, but you want to use some products that are on the organic line. Like Steve likes a couple of the amendments that they offer from Fox Farm. I think one's Ka-Ching, I think he said in the past. There's two.
Oh yeah, there's ones that you can use, but that was just, so we often cover different products that we find in hydro stores, so that and tell people if they're fish safe or not, because people always don't have access to all the stuff that we tell people. Hey, in the perfect world, you'd order this mineral salt, or you'd order langbonite, or you'd order dolomite, or whatever. Sometimes people just need a quick grab what's in the store, so we often like to grab stuff off the store, look at different things that people offer us, and say, hey, based on the ingredients, is this okay? And then how should you use 25%? Should you use 10%?
Right. Right.
And then how to adjust it.
And that was the key that we learned in the past shows too, that when you do buy those store-bought nutrients that are made for hydroponics, or a soil grow, even a soilless grow, cocoa or pro mix or whatever, you probably want to look at possibly using no more than 25% and as low as maybe 10%, like Steve just mentioned. So you wouldn't use that as normally you'd be told, follow the directions on the bottle. In this case, no, you got to cut it down. You got to figure out, what it is that you need. And I think getting into when you're doing this, getting your proper measuring devices, your meters, so that you can actually tell what you're adding to your water. Because the bottom line is, like I think Steve was getting at, is you can't kill the fish.
Well, the other thing too is that, or adding a smaller amount to your compost teas with your microbes and everything else, and adding much less, adding 5 or 10% of the dosage, just enough to boost and have it available, and then have those microbes you're brewing, boost that up, and not so much relying on it so heavily, but making it highly available.
And then what you've taught us in the last 3 months is that the ferments in the labs, that to me seems like the way to go if you want to add something. I guess there's maybe rock phosphate occasionally, but I guess you guys have differing opinions. Some of you use it, some of you don't use it. But I think what we've been hearing from BrayneGro and Marty with the ferments, and you talking about a lot in depth about the labs a couple weeks ago when we didn't have a guest. That's one of the great shows, because there was so much just pure information where we were on topic for a long time. And I found that fascinating. And I think that's the answer to it. That's what you need to get into. You need to get into the fermentation that the Korean grow, what do they would call it, Marty? Can you help me there?
Natural farming is probably one of the major lines that does ferment. I mean, there's a number of them, but Korean natural farming is one of the general terms that comes up over and over again.
Yeah, so look into that kind of thing. I think that's the way everybody's going. That's to having really good success. I might be wrong, but instead of worried about buying something from the store, get some fruit. like Marty's saying, get some blackberries or some plums or whatever's locally available that's in your region. You know, that's you can go get off a tree, because there's stuff that grows wild. There's stuff that people won't even care if they got a tree and stuff's falling in their yard. If you're polite, you go up there and you know, don't act like a thug. You know, they might let you pick up all the fruit out their yard. You know, and so you can make a ferment. And that's where a lot of your potassium and phosphorus can come from also, I believe. What else was magnesium that you get?
Magnesium, potassium. And what you ferment obviously makes a difference. But one of the ones that I didn't mention before that I'll mention now is like watermelon rind. We just went through today and took apart a big watermelon and took the seeds out. I was talking about with my son. Well, the next thing we'll probably do is take all the rind from that watermelon and cut it up and make a ferment out of that. The same thing you can do with like cucumber skins or a lot of different stuff, which again, you could just feed a lot of that stuff to the worms, which I do when I'm feeling lazy. For instance, I can just throw that in a worm bin and they'll eat it up just fine. But the watermelon rind or cantaloupe rind or any of those, I feel like are a good option for doing ferments on, because they're relatively easy to do. Otherwise you're pretty much just going to throw them away anyway. And
they're full of nutrients.
Yeah, they're easy to break down. They're thin cellulose walls, all that good stuff.
So cool. So, all right. Well, thanks for your help there, Marty. Back to you, Steve. You got another question? It's the Steve and Marty Q&A show, and I'm just gonna moderate.
Yeah. Let's see here. Trying to.
Well, thanks for teaching me, guys, because so I could help you out with that question. That was kind of,
Hey, no problem. Have you done any ferments yet, Roger? You got anything started?
No, I'm busier. I'm trying to fix my damn lawn tractor. It's like kind of hard to cut up fruit when you're underneath a lawn tractor trying to get a damn bolt that's been in there for 10 years, out.
It's true. Well, next time you buy a watermelon, just save the rind.
So
be good.
It's good time. It's getting ready to be time. It's about that time almost around here. I think it's just about that time and get. In fact, I was at Wally World the other day, and I saw these big old, and I'm like any big vessel, like so they had these like, what do you call it, that they feed horses, horse troughs, the metal horse troughs, the oblong, look like a racetrack or something, Well, I was like, how much are those? No, they were just there with full of watermelons. They weren't selling them, so. My excitement waned a little bit because I was more interested in the tub than the watermelons. But I don't have anybody to share a watermelon with. I'd be up to my ears in a watermelon if I bought a watermelon.
Yeah, we chop it up and freeze it really so we can put it in smoothies later.
Yeah, it'd be sad for me. Like, where's my family out there?
We had a question. I've heard that if you grow certain things with weed, it can change the flavor a little. I'm wondering if this is real or just a myth. I would say it's definitely a myth in aquaponics, and I don't really see it making a difference in your terpenes by simply having the root system networked. Do you guys have a different opinion?
I can't say that I've ever experienced that firsthand. I mean, maybe that's about all I can really say about it, is that I'm not going to say anything definitive. I haven't conducted any scientific tests or anything, but I can tell you in my experience, I've never seen that.
They're asking if it would be cross-pollination, I guess is what they're really asking, and that's whether it affect any change of taste. That's hard, really. Why don't you try it for about 20 years, come back and let us know.
I always get that question too, like, does it make your weed taste like fish poop? And it's like, I have no idea why you would think that's like. You don't ask that of somebody who grows a tomato. Like, does your tomato grow like fish poop? Like, no.
It grows in cow shit, so
Yeah, or worm shit. Like, nobody asks that. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Or do your tomatoes taste like salt because you grew them with salt nutrients?
Do your tomatoes taste like fish? That's my favorite one. Does your weed taste like fish? We get that one all the time.
That same thing all the time. Does it taste like fish or fish poop? And I'm like, no, it doesn't at all. So, in case anybody's wondering.
We had a question from Chad. Has anyone tried optimal fish food? Aquaponic fish food, he says. Been using it for 6 months. I don't know. I haven't used it. I know Charlie Schultz has been using it a ton. and
Yeah.
he loves it. So
I mean, I guess I kind of went on like a little mini food search not that long ago, because I usually buy it relatively in bulk and it lasts me like a year and a half. Because I don't keep that many fish, and mostly koi and a couple of catfish and stuff, not too many. But yeah, I couldn't really find anything that seemed different. Like they pretty much all, if you look at the guaranteed analysis of everything from like your normal Tetra goldfish food, like the pellet food, or whether it was pellets from this company or pellets from like Purina catfish food, for like pond food or koi pond food, or like pretty much no matter what that, the guaranteed analysis was like less than 1% different on just about everything. And so I haven't tried their food. I did look at the guaranteed analysis and look at it. I wouldn't say that I saw there was anything wrong with it. I will say that it was probably cost was the main reason I didn't order it and chose to go with something else. So I couldn't find a big difference in fish food. So maybe Steve has something to add to that, but
I don't know the differences. I know I could definitely get someone on the show that could, but
yeah.
I'm kind of curious. Are they making a claim that by using this food you get more minerals out of your fish waste, or
it's supposed to be a little bit better balanced on certain.
Okay, so that's the point.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought.
But if you look at the guaranteed analysis they have posted on their website, it just doesn't. You would think it would come out in the guaranteed analysis, I guess, is what I didn't really understand. And I even emailed them, and I didn't get a response. So
Well, the
it would be
guaranteed
interesting to get somebody on that knows a little bit more about it, because I just ended up ordering from my local co-op here.
Right.
They have fish food just for people that have sporting fish like bass and catfish and different stuff in their ponds. So they carry big, 40, 50-pound bags for relatively cheap. So that's where I got mine. And just because I also like supporting my local co-op. But I did go on sort of like a little mission to try to find out if there was like some food that was magically better for aquaponics, and I couldn't find anything definitive that said that, especially that would justify the cost difference.
So yeah, well, we'll have to talk about not tonight because we're running pretty long tonight anyway. But one thing I'd like to talk about is like how you guys out there went about setting up your co-ops. But that's so I just want to bring it up. That'd be something nice to talk about on the show one night. How to go about setting up a co-op in your local area so you can help local growers. I've been trying to do that, and it's a bitch.
That's not a one episode thing. That would be like a 5-part.
Yeah. Well, okay, we'll see. Like I said, it's a bitch. I've been trying to do it for years, and it just, oh man, it's tons of legwork, and oh man. But yeah, getting a bunch of people to agree on stuff too. And
then you get some jackass councilman that comes in, swoops in, and bans all co-ops, and all of your last 8 years or 6 years or 5 years worth of work was all for naught.
Yeah, I'm not sure they'd be able to do that around here, though. That's the one good part about it.
Oh yeah, that's what you think now.
Well,
I said that about cannabis. Look at my backyard. It no longer has cannabis.
We're not legal for cannabis, so I'm not talking about cannabis.
Allegedly.
I know, but I'm saying they said the same thing.
And actually, yeah, it could spill over into that, allegedly.
Yeah.
But
so Old Park Grow says he's been working on a poor man's lobster recipe for tilapia. So
what's that be?
We'll have to see how that goes. I looked into making some of my own food. I have a guy who does an aquaponic source, or not the aquaponic source, but he works at an aquaponic farm where they source their own black soldier fly larvae that they process into food, and sometimes feed the larvae to at particular stages. I guess he was talking about the catfish don't really like him as much once they get kind of a hard shell on the outside of them. They get a little bit older. So he had a couple of ways of harvesting them that maybe I'll see if I can get him to shoot some videos or something for us and do that. But there are obviously a number of different ways that you can make your own fish food. if you want to, but it's fairly labor intensive. But black soldier flies, I have I'm a big advocate of child labor. So another thing I make my kids do is pick out red worms out of my red worm bin and feed them to the fish. And they actually love that because they can, sort of throw them to them and the fish fight over them and stuff. So that's kind of fun, but that's not really like that's not a complete diet for them altogether. So, we usually only do that about, once a week or so. But there are a number of things you can do to make your own food, but most of them are labor intensive.
Roaches are the best. Nothing beats dubia roaches or hissing cockroaches if you're feeding, especially larger fish. You can take all the roots, all the shit parts of your plants, keep them in a freezer with a couple of heat pads, and they'll just breed like crazy. And their waste is way better than even worm casings.
It's cool.
Roaches.
I've heard there's some beetles that work really well for that too. I saw somebody posted in one of the aquaponics groups that they have some beetle that they got somewhere that basically they're using beetle castings to be able to break down food too. So I don't know what kind of beetle it was. It was like a long body. Did you see that post, Steve?
No, I missed that one.
Might have been one of the ones you got banned from. You never know.
Yeah.
I don't keep track of them. Honestly, I'm so hard. Like,
yeah, well,
so many groups now.
We've talked about that before.
What?
We've talked about that before. You got a couple of groups where if you suggest something that's different, all of a sudden you're a problem.
Right.
Right. And again, there's probably a solid dozen aquaponic groups that I'm a member of now that I just got added to, or people tag me in posts on, so I joined to be able to see what was going on or different things like that. So some of them even have the same name. I think there's like 3 or 4 different groups that are just called Aquaponics. So that's super fun. And so keeping track of what gets posted where is weird, but the beetles look like really cool. Basically like similar to black soldier fly bin style setup, where they just threw in food and broke it down like castings. And I assume you were saying roaches would be pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah, except they breed faster and they're easier. And then what you do is you take like paper towel rolls or a couple pieces of PVC, you shake them into a Ziploc, zip it shut, throw it in the freezer, and for half an hour until they don't move anymore. Then feed them to your fish. Works great. They don't go nowhere. Works awesome.
Oh, so you put the food in there and you let them all inhabit and go get all big, the whole shitload of them in there eating the food, and then you freeze them to kill them and feed your fish.
Yep.
How are they in terms of like nutrients for the fish?
Super high in protein, super high in fat, really good in calcium, magnesium, other nutrients. Plus, you can recycle all your plant material, your roots, your leftover leaves, your bait plants, and all the anything else you want back into them. You can kind of reuse all that stuff you're not using.
It's kind of the same thing we do, or at least I do with my red worm bins.
Mm-hmm.
I throw root balls and pretty much everything in there. As long as it's not manure, pretty much stays out, or meat in general.
How would you contain roaches if you wanted to contain roaches in a farm?
Oh, they're easy to contain. You just put them in a container with Vaseline around the top. They won't cross a 1 to 2 inch band of Vaseline.
Vaseline trick. Okay, that's what I was digging for. I was digging for the Vaseline trick. And now, what all kind of little bugs and stuff with the see what you talked about it a while back, and I didn't want to butt in, believe it or not. But what is it that I see Marty smiling? I didn't want to butt in. So, but what is it that what other bugs can you contain in like an open aquarium with Vaseline? Anything else?
Anything that doesn't fly.
So worms?
Yeah.
So if you do worms or anything that doesn't fly or jump high enough to get out, right?
Yeah, anything that can't jump the edge or fly.
I think a lot of people don't realize that worms at nighttime get extremely active on the surface.
Oh yeah, they'll leave.
Crawl out and get all over the place.
But they won't go past the Vaseline.
Nope.
And that's like 3 inches, right? You put a coat 3 inches around the top.
No, they just don't like Vaseline.
They just don't like it.
Just is.
No, but I said you have to put 3 inches. Didn't you say to put like coat it down from the top like 3 inches around it? Or okay.
Yep, 1 to 2 inches usually is fine.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Just a perimeter.
Yep.
Well, I have a project I'm going to try.
It involves Vaseline
It involves roaches in an aquarium and
and
trapping
Vaseline.
and Vaseline. Yeah.
Anyways, you got anything else you guys want to touch on this week? If not, that was a pretty good episode.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
good.
that's it. I actually have to get going too, so appreciate you guys. You guys want to look me up, AP Meds on YouTube, Patreon if you want to check out some of my fruit ferments and different stuff like that. A little more how-to videos. We got so patreon.com/APMeds. All that stuff should be in the description. Aquaponic Cannabis Growers Group on Facebook is the one that we generally, kind of revolves around the podcast and people involved with it. So definitely check us out there. We have the online class coming up after Steve's class, which
On
is
the
at
19th and
Marlowe's
20th.
coming up.
Yep, it's 19th and 20th. So if anyone's looking to take the Aquaponic Cannabis class, definitely check that out. Totally forgot about that. You're absolutely right. I'm gonna have the cameras set up and a stream set up on the laptop so that people can follow along and be able to ask questions and chat and all. And Marty will be there as well. And Marty will have content from his stuff and also it'll be dope.
Yep. So all that is in place. I had hoped that my side-by-side would have been relatively farther along, and we could cover that a little bit more in that class. But we'll have to see. It may just be two plants growing side by side as opposed to an actual side-by-side test. But at least we'll have those to work with.
Something to talk about.
Anything else going on? Steve's podcast coming up on was it Mondays, right? You do the.
Yep, last week in cannabis. We've been following a couple of different states' bills, and it's been really fun talking about the different things each week, hasn't it, Roger?
Actually, keeping up with something you wouldn't normally keep up with because it's not in my state. Yeah. So
Yep.
I mean, I'd like to know about it to help other people, but yeah, we've been keeping up with some interesting stuff that's going on. Good stuff too. Some positive notes, believe it or not.
Yep.
You have to catch the show on Monday to find out what's positive about it.
And then obviously, if you guys have any questions, always feel free to message us directly.
Yep.
So yeah, you guys have a good night. I'm going to take off. I'll see you guys later.
Also, you want to tell people how to find you and your Patreon and the rest?
I just did that.
Oh, I guess I'm just stoned.
I thought you were sleeping.
How about you, Roger?
Hey, y'all drop by and join the community forum at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com. We've got an excellent blog with over 500 articles on everything you can imagine about how to grow cannabis indoors, outdoors, in whatever, and some really good science about it, behind it. And if you want to buy some flower power nutrients, go to ilovegrowingsupplies.com and check them out.
Shout out to Old Fart Grows in chat. He says, "Thanks for sharing your frontal lobes." Anytime. We love this show, and it's fun having a cool place to hang out with a bunch of other like-minded growers and stuff like that. It's awesome.
Great guests too. Great guests.
Yeah. Who would have thought of making a packaging that interesting? I knew it was going to be cool, really neat to talk about the different kinds and delivery methods and things. I thought that was really neat. I think we learned a lot of cool stuff.
So before we go, we have to thank Jeremy from Adler Packaging.
Yep.
In Maryland for coming on and explaining a lot of the ins and outs of what's going on these days in all the different packaging.
Yep. And his information is in the description if you guys want to check that out. And be sure to check out Ouroboros Farms, ouroborosfarms.com. And then if you're looking to take the online class, check out my website, Ponics.com. It'll be kind of simultaneous, but it's just two different methods because of how the back end works for us. So, I guess trying to think if there's anything else. They have their commercial class on the 11th, 12th, and 13th, and then the medicinal herb class on the 15th and 16th. So, definitely check that out. Hopefully we'll have some pretty cool content from Washington. Have a quick trip up there to do some cool cannabis related things. We'll see. May or may not end up having any video content that I can share with you guys or not. We're gonna find out. If not, we'll have some interesting other content, just on the road content for a little bit. So, alrighty. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll catch you guys later, and I think that's it. Have a good one, and I'll see you guys on Monday.
Good night, y'all.
Thanks for joining.